There's one question on every fan's lips as the Marvel Cinematic Universe approaches the future. Whither Wolverine? Okay, fine, maybe no one is saying it that way, but Wolverine might appear a lot earlier than you think. Charles Xavier might be the founder of the X-Men and Scott Summers the leader, but far and away the fan favorite is the man who is the best at what he does, even if what he does isn't very nice. Logan the Wolverine is a mainstay of the mutant comics, and of course the star of the mutant universe at Fox. That's thanks in no small part to being portrayed so ably by Hugh Jackman. Now that Hugh Jackman has hung up his claws and the mutants are under the umbrella of Marvel Studios, yay! We've been looking for any sign as to how the meanest mutant on the X-Men would find his way into the MCU, and that sign might have popped up in a set photo from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Displayed prominently in a courtyard on Falcon and Winter Soldier is the flag for a little country called Madripoor. If you're wondering when they covered Madripoor in geography, well, they didn't. But if you're a fan of Wolverine comics, you know Madripoor very well. Anytime that Wolverine needs to throw a snit or just get away from it all, not to mention punch a few people who probably need a good punching, he goes to Madripoor. The functional Southeast Asian island country has been at the center of Wolverine stories as well as mutants at large. Of course, just because the flag of Logan's favorite watering hole makes a cameo in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that doesn't mean that the Berserker himself will be there. But once you factor in the who and the why of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then it starts to make some sense. At least the beginnings of the Wolverine story will exist in the Disney Plus series. What are those factors? Well, here's what we know. Falcon was the one-time companion and confidant of the super soldier Steve Rogers, Captain America. He's been paired up with Steve's oldest friend, who just so happens to be a product of a super soldier program himself, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. The enemy they'll be facing is Helmut Zemo, who, if you recall, killed a bunch of super soldiers as a part of his plot to destroy the Avengers. Zemo is a man who hates super soldiers. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been driven by the Super Soldier program. Bruce Banner was pushed into self-experimentation by a desire to recreate the program. The Incredible Hulk is a super soldier, even though you have to bum him out to beat him. Even Luke Cage was an attempt to make super soldiers, which, by the way, they seem to succeed. Luke Cage is impervious to harm, mostly. The real problem is that when you make one, they seem to immediately break all your stuff. Well, Canada got in on the super soldier arms race with its own program they called Weapon X. It wasn't Logan's heart that made the difference, it was his healing factor that allowed adamantium to be fused onto his skeleton, making his bones unbreakable and his claws capable of slicing through just about anything, and making that super cool sound when they come out of his hands. We do know that Disney Plus series will revolve in some way around the super soldier program. With Zemo not being a fan of super soldiers or superheroes in general, it's likely that once he got out of Emmett Ross's fancy prison, the first thing on his to-do list was to get rid of all super soldiers. Naturally, the Weapon X program was top secret. Shh. It was so secret, in fact, that even Wolverine didn't know about it. For the longest time, Logan had a blank spot in his memory. Clearly, someone gave him a metal skeleton, but he didn't remember why. All he could remember was that there was something about it that made him super angry. For a while, he wandered the countryside, taking that anger out on people randomly. Professor X talked him into joining the X-Men in exchange for Xavier seeing if he could unlock that memory of his past. The MCU has been known to adjust stories to fit, and in the case of Wolverine, he's appeared in 9 movies since 2000's X-Men movie. That's a lot of movies. Wolverine's super soldier past might end up being more front and center in the MCU. In fact, one of the common threads in the saga of the whole super soldier in the MCU has been Hydra, whether working behind the scenes or in front of them. It's possible that some of these tendrils might be evident in Black Widow, perhaps in a post-credits scene that sets up Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the Canadian super soldier. Oh, Canada! Of course, we'll have to wait a little longer to find out, but we'll know when Black Widow finally does make it to the big screen. With Madripoor, super soldiers, super soldier haters, and potentially the Weapon X program, it's a perfect cocktail for Wolverine to emerge. It would fit into the theme of Helmut Zemo in the MCU, as he's the avatar of unintended consequences. What if it's the scheming of Zemo and the day-saving of Falcon and the Winter Soldier that disrupts Weapon X enough for Wolverine to escape? Stranger things have happened. Oh, that's what that title means. Of course, there's a problem with all of this. Sure, the Winter Soldier was a big enough character to get second billing as the good guy turned villain turned good guy in Captain America's second outing, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. That's also the movie where we got introduced to Sam Wilson, the Falcon. These are the characters that are getting the Disney Plus treatment, not feature films.
All right, enough. All of you.
I didn't say anything. That's not fair.
Certainly one of the supposed draws of Disney Plus is that they can do cinema-level productions in a television format through the magic of Disney having all of the money. But Wolverine isn't a sidekick. He's easily the most popular mutant. And that popularity is also a hurdle for the MCU because of the iconic portrayal of the character by Hugh Jackman. From his first cage fight in X-Men to his big sacrifice to save a new generation of mutants in Logan, Wolverine has been the staple of the X-Men franchise. Thanks to the character's long lifespan, he's also been the one to bridge the two franchises, appearing in both the Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen X-Men and the James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender X-Men. In fact, Hugh Jackman's portrayal is so beloved, fans overlook the otherwise tragic X-Men Origins Wolverine as not his fault. It's not his fault. There were some strange decisions made there. Regardless, they have a problem that's bigger than their Spider-Man problem. That's Spidey on the tail end of his second reboot when he came to Marvel. They need to have Wolverine be both fresh and familiar. For Spider-Man, that meant no origin story and no repeat villains. What that might mean for Wolverine is to do something that the shared universe is uniquely positioned to do in a way that even the expanded mutant franchise couldn't. They're going to plant a flag. In this case, quite literally. By establishing Madripoor this early in the process, they make Wolverine's world part of the world. Falcon and the Winter Soldier isn't the only one hiding teasers of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to come. S.W.O.R.D gets a name check in WandaVision. S.W.O.R.D is of course the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. Marvel loves its acronyms. S.W.O.R.D is what S.H.I.E.L.D. is, but for space. Which after the Chitauri invasion, the Dark Elves, and Thanos, makes sense that they would start keeping an eye out for threats coming out of the sky. Maybe that's what Nick Fury's new job is in that Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene. S.W.O.R.D is home to a few mutants itself, like Beast and Kitty Pryde's former companion, Lockheed. Of course, not every tease has played out. The biggest tease is of course in Iron Man 3, where the person who appeared to be the Mandarin turned out to be a guy named Trevor. In a Marvel one-shot, we learn that the real Mandarin is still out there and he is not amused. That tease won't pay off until the release of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, where Marvel's master of Kung Fu is set to take on the Man and his organization. The takeaway is that we might not get a Wolverine fully formed in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but we might get the underpinnings of a Wolverine that already has an established Madripoor and Weapon X program waiting for the new Logan story to arise in the MCU. Maybe a guy under 6 feet tall this time, What we might get instead is characters like William Stryker, the madman in charge of the Weapon X program whose hate for mutants knows no bounds. While the Weapon X program didn't invent adamantium in the comics, it's possible that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, adamantium could be a product of the Weapon X program. The mutants are going to be a big sell in the MCU. In the comics, they've been around like forever, but in the MCU, they have to emerge fully formed. That's likely going to take the form of another big story event like House of M or Dawn of X. In those big events, details like Madripoor and the Weapon X program could get lost in the shuffle. By establishing them now, they set up the world of Wolverine so that he can step into it already formed. See, it's all starting to make sense here. This ultimately is what the shared universe does best. Any adapted property from a similar franchise will include a raft of Easter eggs and fan service for those who are steeped in the lore of the franchise.
Parker!
Yes, sir.
Are we boring you?
He's not bored. He's just thinking about how you kidnapped him.
But in a shared universe, those little tokens can become part of the fabric of the universe. Madripoor might be Logan's favorite watering hole, but he's not the only Marvel character to ever visit the tiny island. MCU staples like Hawkeye and Iron Man have had encounters on Madripoor. In fact, Shang-Chi ended up fighting the whole island when it turned out to be the top of the head of a dragon that was animated by the hand. Comic books are awesome. Having an environment where these kinds of elements can pop up in one title to be featured in another stitches the worlds together in a way that crossovers and guest appearances can't accomplish on their own. In the first seasons of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. really helped establish worlds and elements for the larger Avengers world that allowed the Avengers movies to be the big adventures that we've come to expect. So while we might not get someone with sweet mutton chops calling people bub and chomping on cigars, we'll get our first glimpse into the world Wolverine might step into soon. That's how the Wolverine might make an early appearance in the MCU. Are you looking forward to the MCU's Wolverine? Where do you think he might show up first? Will he have his costume? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not subscribe to CBR for all the latest videos?